Have you ever wondered how someone manages to keep their humanity in a place where every step could be their last? Akane Heiya is not just a survivor, she is living proof that empathy and resilience can coexist even when the world insists on destroying you. While everyone else screams, runs, and fights for the next game, she watches, calculates, and acts with a calmness that is almost frightening. It seems impossible, doesn't it? But it is exactly in this contrast between fragility and strength that her secret lies. And what if I told you that by understanding Heiya's story, you could learn lessons about courage and emotional intelligence that go far beyond Borderland? If you are a fan of cinema and psychology and want to understand the mind behind your favorite character, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. But first, comment below which character you want me to analyze on the channel. Now let's get into the video. Akane Heiya is one of those figures who seem silent at first glance, but carry an entire universe within their eyes. A woman who walked through the hell of Borderland with the serenity of someone who had already met pain. Long before getting there, while many characters pulse with impulsiveness, Heiya is the opposite, a tense balance between calm and open wound. She doesn't need to shout to be heard. Her presence speaks for itself. And it's curious how sometimes the quietest people are the ones who understand chaos the most. Heiya was a firefighter in the real world, a profession that demands courage but also humanity. Someone who literally ran toward the fire while others ran from it. This detail isn't just trivia about her past life, it defines her entire essence. She wasn't molded only to save people, but to carry the emotional weight of those she tried and failed to save. And that failure echoes inside her in an almost invisible yet devastating way. What stands out is how she doesn't see herself as a hero. Heiya doesn't want to be idolized, a leader, or a martyr. She simply acts. And that is fascinating, because in the world of Alice in Borderland, where masks fall and morals distort, she maintains a rare sense of ethics. Even amid despair, she carries an empathy that feels out of place, like a reminder that it is still possible to be human even when the world demands the opposite. If we look closely, Heiya is the kind of character that challenges the viewer to look beyond the obvious. She doesn't shine through grand acts, but through small gestures. The way she listens, how she hesitates before hurting, how she observes before judging. It's that calm that doesn't come from peace, but from tamed pain. And that is a brutal difference. There is a silent courage in those who have learned to bear the weight without needing to prove anything to anyone. And that is where many people identify with her, because we've all had moments when we had to appear strong even while falling apart inside. Heiya is the portrait of that quiet strength, of that emotional survival that isn't made of screams, but of deep breaths between one trauma and another. It's almost as if the viewer sees in her an improved version of themselves, someone who keeps going even when everything begs to stop. The most beautiful thing about Akane is that unlike other characters who seek meaning in Borderland, she isn't there to find something. She is there to remain true to what she already believes, and that is powerful. Because deep down, the real test of that world isn't surviving the games, it's surviving yourself. And Heiya does that with a dignity that few can maintain when the line between right and wrong disappears. When she crosses paths with Arisu and Usagi, her presence changes the rhythm of the narrative. She doesn't try to lead, but naturally becomes a point of balance between reason and emotion. Her emotional maturity contrasts with the others' despair, and that reveals something interesting. Sometimes the most impactful strength doesn't come from fighting, but from serenity in the face of chaos. Heiya is living proof that there is power in self-control, and maybe it's precisely that serenity that hides the deepest pain. Because no one develops such calmness without having faced inner storms first. And it's in that contained silence, in that gaze, that carries memories she never verbalizes, where the true mystery of Akane Heiya lies. And what she keeps inside is what we're about to begin uncovering now. Akane Heiya enters Borderland without fuss, but with the experience of someone who has already faced real dangers before. Every step she takes carries memories of rescues, of lives barely saved, and others she couldn't save at all. It's as if she carries an invisible scale within her, weighing every decision between saving others and preserving herself. In the cruel universe of Borderland, that baggage isn't just history, it's a survival strategy. And that is a huge difference between those who act impulsively and those who act with intention. From the beginning, she stands out for observing more than exposing herself, while others throw themselves into games, often driven by fear or anger. Heiya analyzes every movement of her opponents, every detail of the environment. Everything passes through the filter of her experience and moral sense. But this constant analysis comes at a price. She has to decide all the time between intervening or waiting, between risking her own life or protecting others, and that creates almost invisible but powerful inner tensions. Her story in Borderland isn't just physical, it's psychological. She carries a burden that few can understand, the responsibility of someone who has saved and lost. Every choice becomes a moral and emotional test. And it's fascinating to notice how she doesn't surrender to collective panic, even when the whole group despairs. Heiya is that rare kind of character who shows that sometimes survival is more about emotional intelligence than physical strength. But not everything is cold rationality. She also deals with the frustration of seeing allies fail or lose themselves. Each loss echoes within her, not as paralyzing trauma, but as a constant reminder of the price of error. And it's exactly that balance between empathy and pragmatism that defines her journey. The viewer feels that even when she doesn't speak, her actions communicate much more than any dialogue could express. An important point in Heiya's story is her interaction with other survivors. She doesn't seek leadership, but inevitably becomes a reference. The people around her notice her reliability, her calmness, and that changes the group dynamic. But the relationship she maintains is one of mutual respect, never domination. This detail reveals something important. Heiya doesn't want to control the world. She wants to survive without losing her humanity, and that creates a powerful contrast with the characters consumed by the game. Borderland, in that sense, becomes a mirror of Akane herself. Every physical challenge reflects an internal battle, controlling fear, assessing risks, making decisions under pressure, and that's exactly what makes her fascinating to follow. The audience realizes that her true conflict isn't just external, but an ongoing struggle between her principles and the extreme circumstances that demand sacrifices. Each victory, therefore, has a double meaning: survival and integrity preserved. Moreover, Heiya's story shows how the past influences the present. Her experiences as a firefighter shaped her ability to remain calm, but also reinforced the pain of every loss. It's a continuous cycle. What helped her survive also amplifies every emotional wound, and that creates a rich narrative where every action has multiple layers of meaning, and every choice reveals a bit more of who she really is. And even with all the gains and losses, there's a thread of hope keeping her connected to others. It's not naivety, but a conscious decision to believe in humanity, even when the world seems determined to prove otherwise. That thread is fragile but resilient, and it's what keeps the viewer tied to her journey, eager to see how that mix of pain, strategy, and empathy will shape her next steps. Akane Heiya's first great wound in Borderland is the loss of her team. Every face that disappears leaves an invisible but heavy mark on her chest. It's not just sadness, it's guilt that corrodes silently because she knows that, in some way, she could have done more. This feeling isn't dramatic or theatrical. It's almost clinical, deep, and shapes every decision she makes from then on. It's a constant reminder that even courage has limits and isn't always enough. Heiya relives these losses subtly, often through quick, almost involuntary thoughts. One wrong step, one hesitation, and the weight of what happened returns. It's curious how, instead of becoming bitter, she transforms that pain into vigilance. Every movement, every risk analysis is influenced by that memory. For her, self-blame isn't self-punishment, but a way to prevent similar mistakes from happening again. This trauma also makes her cautious, perhaps more than necessary. In moments of decision, Heiya overweighs the consequences, anticipating scenarios no one else would imagine. This hyper-awareness is double-edged. It protects others, but also distances her emotionally. She builds invisible barriers to avoid feeling that powerlessness again. It's an armor made of empathy and fear that no one sees but everyone senses when they're around her. The guilt over losing her team influences her interactions with other characters. She hesitates to get attached, to lead, or to fully trust. Every relationship is carefully calibrated because she doesn't want to repeat past mistakes. And that caution isn't weakness. On the contrary, it's a silent strategy for emotional survival. Heiya shows that the weight of responsibility doesn't need to be visible to be powerful. Interestingly, that guilt doesn't completely paralyze her. She keeps acting, saving when she can, risking when necessary. But every action carries the echo of that loss. It's as if she's constantly conversing with the memories of her team, learning from them, letting them guide her steps without letting them define her destiny. That inner tension creates a silent magnetism in the narrative. She also faces inner conflicts that often go unnoticed. Guilt mixes with her sense of duty, her anger toward herself, and her compassion for others. It's a complex emotional not reflected in how she acts under pressure. And what's most fascinating is that even while carrying all of this, she manages to project calm and confidence, as if saying, "I learned from the pain and I move forward." Every moment of reflection on her lost team reinforces her resilience. Heiya understands that Borderland doesn't forgive mistakes, but she also slowly learns to forgive herself and use that pain as a moral compass. It's a delicate balance between remembrance and action, guilt and compassion, loss and silent strength. And it's that complexity that makes her feel so real to those who watch her. And as always, this experience sets the stage for the next trauma, the difficulty of trusting again. Because when someone carries the weight of losing who they considered family, every new connection becomes a risk. The line between protecting and shutting down is thin, and Akane Heiya walks it with the tense grace of someone who already knows every bond has a price. The distrust and fear of getting attached again. After losing her team, Akane Heiya develops an almost invisible barrier against close relationships. She knows how painful it is to trust and lose, so she prefers to keep a safe distance. It's not coldness, but protection. Every smile, every friendly gesture is filtered through the experience of someone who has seen bonds break tragically. And it's fascinating how that makes her simultaneously accessible and untouchable, as if we were watching a fortress in motion. This fear of attachment doesn't stop her from caring, but changes how she expresses it. Heiya helps, guides, and protects, but rarely exposes herself emotionally. It's a delicate dance, close enough to be useful, distant enough not to get hurt. The viewer realizes that every action is calculated, not out of selfishness, but self-preservation. It's almost as if she were saying, "I can save you, but I can't allow myself to suffer again." This distrust also creates tension in her interactions with Arisu and Usagi. They feel her competence and loyalty, but also perceive the emotional wall she has built. It's an interesting paradox. Heiya wants connections, but fears the cost of each bond. This duality adds layers to the narrative, showing that in Borderland, the battle isn't just against deadly games, but also against one's own inner fears. It's curious how that caution affects her natural leadership. When a crisis arises, Heiya doesn't impose herself, but her sense of responsibility places her at the center of decisions. And yet, she keeps emotional distance, as if always one step away from getting hurt. It's a silent lesson on how trauma and prudence can coexist with strength and influence without the need for grandeur. This difficulty in trusting also makes her perceptive of others' emotional risks. She notices signs of despair, fear, or impulsiveness, and acts not only to protect herself, but to guide others away from reckless decisions. It's as if every interaction were an opportunity to learn and teach, turning her distrust into a form of silent wisdom that few can recognize. However, that protection comes with a cost. Heiya sometimes feels isolated even among the group. The line between self-preservation and loneliness is thin, and she walks it with extreme care. And it's exactly that tension that makes her so human. She's not a flawless hero, but someone who balances fear, experience, and courage in a masterful way. Interestingly, despite everything, there are moments when her inner guardian softens. Small gestures, trusting looks, or shared decisions allow her to experience connection without fully exposing herself. Those brief moments are powerful because they show that trust isn't the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. And Heiya masters that with impressive subtlety, and it is precisely this mix of distrust and care that prepares her for the next internal challenge. The constant conflict between empathy and the need for survival. She has to decide at every moment how much to give, how far to help, and when to put her own life above everything else, a dilemma that few characters face with such intensity. The struggle between empathy and survival. In the Borderland, Akane Heiya faces a constant dilemma: to help others or to protect herself. Each decision is a tightrope between compassion and self-preservation. She feels the pain of those around her, but she also knows that giving too much can cost her own life. It is a silent, internal conflict that few notice, but that shapes every step she takes. This invisible battle makes her a complex and incredibly human character. This tension between empathy and survival manifests itself in seemingly simple choices, such as sharing resources or risking herself for someone in danger. Heiya calculates the risk but never lets coldness completely dominate her. She finds a delicate balance where each action is guided by morality and instinct, and it is exactly this ability to measure consequences that sets her apart from other impulsive survivors. The most interesting thing is noticing how this internal conflict influences her interaction with allies. She wants to help but always keeps a clear boundary. It is a kind of silent leadership. She guides and protects without losing herself emotionally. This duality shows that in the Borderland there is not only physical survival, but also ethical and emotional survival, and Heiya is a master at navigating those turbulent waters. Sometimes, this dilemma generates guilt. When she chooses self-preservation, she feels selfish. When she chooses empathy, she exposes herself to enormous risks. This constant oscillation shapes her personality, making her resilient but also introspective. The viewer realizes that every victory or loss of hers is not just about winning a game, but about dealing with her own moral code in a world that constantly challenges it. It is interesting that even in the face of this conflict, Heiya maintains a thread of hope in others. She believes in humanity, even when the Borderland shows the opposite. And this belief, even if fragile, subtly influences her choices. She helps when she can, teaches when necessary, but never sacrifices herself without reason. This attitude makes her a silent moral compass amid chaos. The conflict between empathy and survival also forces her to make quick decisions under pressure, something that reinforces her previous experience as a firefighter. Every second counts, and every action has multiple consequences. For Heiya, the Borderland is a constant testing ground, not only of physical strength, but of emotional intelligence and moral awareness, something few can balance so well. It is curious to note that this internal battle makes her victories more meaningful. It is not just about surviving the games, but about maintaining integrity while facing the impossible. Each choice filled with risk and empathy builds a narrative of silent strength and practical wisdom. The audience connects because they understand that survival is not just about staying alive, but about remaining human. And, as always, this tension sets the stage for the next topic: how these traumas and dilemmas shape her personality and influence every decision she makes. Heiya's journey shows that in the Borderland, the real game is within each person, and understanding that is what keeps us glued to the narrative. All of Akane Heiya's traumas intertwine to form a singular personality marked by caution, empathy, and resilience. She has learned to observe before acting, to weigh every consequence, and to protect not only herself, but also those around her. This combination of experience, pain, and wisdom creates a silent force, almost invisible, that influences everything she does. It is a force that does not shout but is felt in every decision. Heiya is not impulsive. Every gesture, every word is deliberate. This stance comes directly from the losses she faced and the fear of becoming too attached. Her caution is not pure fear, but emotional intelligence applied to survival. It is as if each emotional scar had taught a vital lesson, making her someone trustworthy and strategic without losing the humanity that defines her essence. Her empathy is also shaped by these factors. She feels the pain of others but manages to act practically without drowning in emotions. It is a rare balance that makes allies see her as a safe harbor. And the most fascinating thing is that this empathy does not diminish her strength. On the contrary, it is the foundation of her emotional and moral endurance, allowing her to remain whole even in the most extreme moments. Another striking trait is her silent resilience. Heiya has gone through losses, distrust, and intense moral dilemmas, and yet she keeps moving forward. This resilience is not displayed with pride, but manifests in the consistency of her actions and in how she faces each challenge. It is as if the pain had been transformed into fuel, driving her forward in a discreet yet relentless way. The fear of becoming attached again also shapes her personality in an interesting way. It makes her selective about whom she trusts, but that does not stop her from forming genuine bonds when she perceives value and integrity. It is a delicate balance between protection and connection, making her emotionally complex and deeply human. Every interaction is measured, every relationship is meaningful, with no room for superficiality. This combination of caution, empathy, and resilience also affects her decision-making. She is not driven by impulses or momentary emotions. She calculates risks, anticipates consequences, and acts strategically. It is a personality that reflects rare emotional maturity, especially in a world where chaos and violence prevail. Heiya stands out for keeping her essence intact, even amid disorder. Furthermore, her traumas make her an observer of human behavior. She perceives signs of weakness, fear, and strength in others, using that information not only to survive, but also to protect and guide. It is a type of emotional intelligence that few characters possess, making her a silent reference of wisdom and care in the Borderland. And finally, all these factors together show that Heiya's personality is a dynamic construction formed by pain, strategy, empathy, and resilience. Every choice she makes is a reflection of these internal experiences, and the viewer realizes that her character is shaped not only by the game, but by everything she carried before and continues to carry within herself. This complexity prepares us for the next step, how these experiences influence her choices. Every choice Akane Heiya makes carries the weight of her experiences and traumas. It is not just about surviving, but about maintaining integrity while facing the impossible. When she decides to help someone, even risking her own life, the gesture reflects empathy molded by the pain of past losses. And when she chooses caution, it is not weakness, but a conscious decision to avoid reliving old wounds. Heiya faces constant dilemmas, and each action reveals her internal complexity. A simple gesture, such as warning about danger or prioritizing an ally's safety, is filled with emotional memory. It is as if she were conversing with the memories of those who did not survive or whom she failed to protect. This silent reflection turns each choice into a lesson that goes far beyond the game. Even in the most extreme moments, she weighs consequences before acting. This shows that her internal pain did not paralyze her ability to decide, but made her more strategic and aware. Every movement in the Borderland is a delicate dance between survival and morality, a balance that few can maintain. And the audience realizes that behind her apparent there is a constant internal dialogue. The fear of becoming attached again influences decisions about trust and collaboration. Heiya chooses carefully whom to rely on, and that directly affects her interaction with the group. Every choice of partnership or distance is informed by past experiences, showing that internal pain, although invisible, profoundly shapes her behavior. It is a kind of emotional intelligence that reveals itself in subtle actions. It is curious to notice that her choices also communicate empathy without words. She protects, guides, and leads others, but rarely exposes herself emotionally. This approach shows that internal pain and compassion can coexist, creating silent and effective leadership. Heiya teaches that not all strength needs to be visible. Often it manifests in thoughtful and careful decisions. Furthermore, the guilt from past losses makes her act cautiously but does not prevent her from taking calculated risks. Every decision shows that pain is not an obstacle but a guide. It is a fascinating paradox. The more she feels, the more aware she becomes of her actions, and the stronger she remains in the face of chaos. The Borderland thus becomes not just a place of survival, but of self-discovery. Her choices also reflect a balance between reason and emotion. Heiya acts practically, but never loses sight of morality. This contrast makes every decision charged with tension and meaning, showing that survival and humanity can coexist even in a world that tries to destroy them. It is a silent lesson that the viewer absorbs almost unconsciously. And, as always, these choices leave traces of what is to come, how Akane's journey in the Borderland continues to reveal not only who she is, but who we can become when we learn to balance pain, empathy, and courage. The narrative sets the stage for the final topic about what her story teaches us about humanity and resilience. Akane Heiya shows us that being human is much more than surviving physically. It is maintaining integrity even when the whole world seems to want to destroy it. Every gesture of care, every thoughtful decision reveals a silent strength that does not depend on shouting or display. It is resilience made of small choices, attention to detail, and empathy. transforming her path into a true manual of humanity in extreme times. She teaches that pain can be an ally, not just a burden. The losses she carries have shaped her, but also taught her about limits, priorities, and the value of human connections. Watching Heiya, we realize that suffering does not have to paralyze. It can guide decisions, strengthen bonds, and inspire conscious actions. Resilience, in this case, is born from the balance between heart and reason. Another important lesson is that trust is not the absence of fear, but the courage to act despite it. Heiya demonstrates that being human involves emotional risks, even when logic suggests maximum caution. She chooses carefully, yes, but she does not let trauma paralyze her. This attitude teaches that true resilience lies in opening oneself to the world while keeping one's feet on the ground, even amid mortal uncertainty. Heiya also shows us the importance of keeping principles in hostile environments. In the Borderland, where morality easily distorts, she preserves values and compassion without losing effectiveness. This silent integrity inspires viewers to reflect on how to act correctly, even when there is no recognition or reward. It is a powerful reminder that humanity manifests in small, consistent actions. Moreover, her story emphasizes that leadership is not about dominance, but about service. She influences the group not through authority, but through wisdom and example. Every thoughtful decision, every silent act of care, reinforces that true strength is subtle and that resilience is built both in moments of action and in the patience to observe and guide. It is a lesson that goes beyond entertainment. Heiya's resilience is also emotional. She protects herself but does not close off completely. She teaches that humanity involves balancing self-preservation and empathy for others. Knowing how far to go, when to take risks, and when to retreat is part of a lesson that we can all apply even outside the Borderland. It is a practical and profound lesson that connects the viewer to their own life. Another point is that her story reinforces the idea that every difficult experience can be transformative. What could have been mere trauma becomes wisdom and silent strength. Heiya shows us that survival is not only about escaping death, but growing through pain, shaping character and world perception. And it is in that growth that true humanity resides. And observing all this, what Akane Heiya leaves us with is clear. Resilience is not the absence of fear or suffering, but the ability to act with integrity, empathy, and awareness, even amid chaos. Her journey invites us to reflect on our own choices, our courage to feel and act, and the possibility of keeping humanity alive, even in extreme scenarios. So, what did you think of Akane Heiya's journey? Every step she takes in the Borderland shows us that survival is not just about escaping deadly games, but about maintaining integrity, empathy, and resilience, even amid chaos. And now I want to know from you, which character do you want us to analyze in the next video? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning about strategies, psychology, and life lessons hidden in the stories you love. Because here, every detail matters, and the next analysis might change the way you see your favorite characters.